Yeah, hi, I'm Bradley Barth from SC Media and the Cyber Risk Alliance, reporting from the InfoSec World 2023 conference in Orlando, Florida. My guest with me today is conference speaker Josh Kuntz. He is Chief Information Security Officer at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation. His InfoSec World session is titled Incentivizing the CIO to prioritize security. He'll also be on a panel, When and Why to Move Cybersecurity Out of IT. Josh, both of your InfoSec World sessions deal with the intersection of IT and security, looking at where the CIO and CISO's perspectives align and where they don't. So what factors do you feel most frequently cause misalignment of values or objectives between the IT department and the security department?
So and this is part of my discussion tomorrow in my session, that really the CIO has three jobs: innovation, operations, and maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing they get most measured on is innovation. Do you bring value to the business? Can you bring new value to the business? Operations is kind of a status quo. If everything works, then you're good. If anything breaks, then they hate you or you're an emergency. But maintenance is the only thing that they're not measured on, and the only person who really cares is the CISO.
Yeah.
And so if you have a CIO whose focus is on that, who can focus on the maintenance, then your relationship can be much more compatible. It's when you have CIOs who only focus on the things that they're measured on, which is natural, human nature, then you start intersecting with these frictions and these conflicts.
Right.
And I think that's what I'm trying to bring to light in this, is how do you bring the awareness of that up?
Mm-hmm.
I in my last organization, I actually, and that's why we did the panel this morning on the moving cybersecurity out of IT. I had a lot of friction with the CIO because the risk message wasn't making its way to the top. I tried to explain, they don't have to take my side. I don't have to be the opinion that they listen to, but they do need to hear it.
Right.
And that's where we ran into conflict is, nobody likes to have their baby called ugly. So if I'm bringing up all these issues and all the issues are, IT related,
Yeah.
people get a little, territorial about that. And so it caused, that's where we started having those enough significant friction that I felt like I needed to bring that to our executives' attention.
Yeah. Are there, from your perspective, certain security-related or maintenance-related projects or initiatives or technologies that are particularly a hard sell when it comes to communicating with the IT department?
I found that especially the vulnerability management program is where you have the most friction with IT. And quite frankly, it's not with the staff of IT. It's with the IT management. Because the staff very often come to you with the issues. Hey, I'm not getting enough prioritization. You might want to bring this up. Here's an issue. They bring that to me. But when you start looking, and like I said, this goes back to those incentivizing factors. When you bring that up to IT management, they can either make a decision to commit resources to addressing vulnerabilities, especially application vulnerabilities, because those are those things where it's like, well, we'll take care of it in the next release. Well, then you get to the next release, well, that didn't make this release, but we'll take care of it in the next release, and the can just keeps getting kicked down the road.
Yeah. Do you have a recommendation or two on how to adjust the attitude of the office of the CIO so that they see maintenance as being an equal to the innovation and operational side of things, especially when you consider that if there is some kind of major attack that hurts productivity and damages the organization, innovation and operations especially are going to be impeded anyway. So,
Absolutely.
So how do you maybe readjust their mindset?
So the first thing is having some awareness discussions, and I've also found that security is not black and white. Security is 1,000 shades of gray. You have to be able to weigh the operational impacts versus the security needs, everything can't be high, everything can't be critical. If you have a vulnerability on an internal-only facing system that doesn't transact any confidential information, even if that vulnerability is critical, is it really critical to the business? And so being able to weigh those things and not always be chicken little, the security is falling, will help build those relationships and that trust that if I bring something to you and I say it's critical or it's a high risk, it really is critical or a high risk.
Yeah.
And that the other side of that is if you can't get that buy-in, even when you explain, as you said, a security incident could become an operational stoppage. I mean, just look at Clorox. Their production line stopped because of a security incident. This wasn't a confidentiality incident. This was absolutely critical to the business. We're not making the product we sell affect. But CIOs look at that sometimes and say, well, we're good enough, or we've not had a breach yet. Maybe I'll roll the dice one more time and kick that can down the road because, if it happens, it's terrible. If it doesn't happen, then I didn't spend any money fixing it.
Right. You mentioned that KPIs and metrics can be a driver, a motivator for the CIO's office, and that's a lot of the metrics are around innovation and operations, and so they're going to give priority to, again, those two pillars and not so much maintenance. But in your presentation, you suggest that there could be some metrics or KPIs that you can introduce that emphasize security more. What would some of those be?
So in the presentation, I talk about measuring your vulnerability management program, both from a standpoint of addressing vulnerabilities in a timely manner, just addressing some percentage of your vulnerabilities. Now, I can't, again, you have to have that pragmatic view. You can't say 100% because 100% is not attainable, but you set some level that's reasonable. In my last job, we set the 70% level. You can address 70% of the vulnerabilities on a monthly basis, and you can address the criticals within 15 days and the mediums within 30 days, and your criticals in 15, your highs in 30, and the mediums within 90 days. That meets your metric, and then you set that. And the key part of that is getting your upper level management to make that part of the performance plan of the CIO. Saying if you meet the metric, then you get it exceptional. If you have a certain amount below that, then maybe it's only you're meeting expectations. If it's below that, then it needs improvement.
Yeah. We had also talked about that there was going to be there was a panel session also looking at when it makes sense to move cybersecurity out of the IT department. So let's spend a moment discussing this one as well. So what are some of the key factors to consider when determining if the security department has reached sufficient maturity and has adequate resources that it makes sense to spin off on its own?
Absolutely. And so I get asked this question quite a lot, especially from the upper level management when you're making the pitch. So, well, do you think that there should never be a time when cybersecurity and IT are together? No. When you start out, everybody is doing everything. So all of your IT folks are doing security, your security folks are doing IT operations. It's when you start having that specialization within the job descriptions. You've got people that are just doing network work. You have folks that are just doing server administration. You have folks that are just doing, application development. You have folks that are just doing security, and you're dealing with just the security tools or just the security governance. That's when you start seeing that you're at a point where you're already separating the job duties. They should be in separate buckets and reporting through separate lines. That gets down to your essential principle of separation of duties. Yeah. If you can't, and this is a well-known concept in the finance area, you don't have the same person putting in a purchase request and authorizing the invoice to be paid. Those are in two totally separate divisions. Why is it any different within the IT and security world? Why do you have the folks that are reviewing the security under the same folks that are building the things that have or do not have security?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, with that, Josh, I think we're going to leave it there. But I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Thanks. I'm so glad you could be here. So again, that's Josh Kuntz, the CISO at the Texas Department of Licensing and Regulation.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us, and continue to stay tuned for more coverage from the InfoSec World 2023 conference here in Orlando, Florida. I'm Bradley Barth with SC Media and the Cyber Risk Alliance, and I'll see you all a little bit later in the show.